You forgot the first rule of remakes, Jill. Don't fuck with the original.
Hey everyone! The remake of Embrace of the Vampire came out on DVD yesterday, and you know what that means?
We're going to be watching softcore porn.
That's right! It's another episode of Don't F with the Original, with
Nicholas, I'm the video game correspondent for Idiomatic.
And I am Dimitri, editor-in-chief of Idiomatic.com and movie critic.
When the movie comes out, we watch the original, we talk about it, we review it, see how we like, if we liked it, if we hated it, and see if, the remake might mess with it or not.
Yeah, and then this is a special case where I actually got to see the remake before we're recording, which doesn't always happen.
You cheater.
Okay, that's what happens. So we'll get to talk about that a little bit, because I think we might go through a little bit quicker through Embrace of the Vampire than we usually do, because, oh my god, that's a slow movie, people.
Yes, very slow. Not much to talk about.
Well, but there's stuff to talk about,
yes.
though, I have to say.
Yeah.
Because it's a peculiar movie. Like, this is not your run-of-the-mill, like, formulaic
No, it
stuff.
really isn't.
Yeah. So, for those of you who don't know, Embrace of the Vampire, 1995 movie by director Anne Goursaud, mostly known for having Alyssa Milano naked an awful lot.
Yes.
That's pretty much what it is. The story, I guess we might as well get through that right away.
There was a story.
No, there is definitely a story.
Yeah.
One that you can probably retell in about 10 minutes if you're cutting out all the naked scenes, but...
Pretty much.
Here we go. Once upon a time, in medieval times, there was a dude who was waiting for his princess.
Yeah.
And then he got attacked by nymphs, essentially, like little vampires. And he himself became a vampire. And now he's become obsessed with a young student.
He thinks it's the reincarnation of his princess.
Exactly. And is sort of slowly getting into her mind, seducing her slowly, trying to get her to remember who she was in a previous life.
And also, forget her current boyfriend, who's a nice guy, really. He's trying to push her to, be physical with her. She doesn't want to because she went to Catholic school. She wasn't raised that way. And basically that creates kind of a tension, and Vampire's trying to play on that.
Absolutely. And the pressure doesn't just come from the boyfriend, in fairness. Like, it's... she goes to a school where everybody only talks about effing.
Pretty much.
And really the movie has a sort of as bookends the story of the vampire, but really it follows Alyssa Milano's character, Charlotte, as she discovers her sexuality, really. She starts off this, really little prude, and sort of grows more and more comfortable with sexuality is essentially what the movie follows.
Yeah.
So that's the basic plot.
Well, I honestly thought that movie was a little disappointing. I really thought the story was just an excuse to show movies, and that was the whole movie. I didn't think the plot was deep enough. I really didn't care if the vampire ended up with her or not, or if she stayed with the boyfriend. They didn't give me any consequences to either of things happening.
That's an excellent point. We'll get to that later, but yeah.
So I really didn't care. So basically, I just thought that, hey, let's see how many nude scenes we can pop in this 1.5 hour movie, and that's how I felt about that movie. I was kind of disappointed. I was expecting maybe a little more.
I'm gonna say something that's gonna surprise people here. I actually kind of liked it. I didn't expect to. The beginning is really, really sluggish, because it's essentially the vampire narrating his story and then narrating his intent towards Charlotte. And you're like, oh, dude, wow, that's a lot of talking.
Yes.
It's like a full 15 minutes out of an hour and a half of just him, narrating the story to you. And it's that's harsh to begin a movie,
Yeah.
But the weird thing happened is that somewhere around the half-hour mark, I actually started getting into it and going oh, I wonder where this is going and where this will end up. And the reason why it actually engaged me in a way that a more typical movie might not is this essentially the thing that you pointed out. Now, you said that there's no real consequence whether or not she ends up with a vampire or whether she ends up with her boyfriend.
Yeah.
And that's really true. And I completely understand why you sort of disconnect, because it's sort of like, well, if there's no stakes, why do I care?
Yeah.
But for me, that's sort of what kept me interested, because it wasn't a classical story of the vampire is evil lust, and if you give in to your lust, it's bad. It's like, the vampire played by Martin Kemp.
Yeah.
When you think about it, he's actually a nice vampire. Like, he never kills the boyfriend. He keeps having the occasion to, and he keeps trying to, like, hey, boyfriend, go cheat on her. Like, come on, boyfriend. You don't want Alyssa Milano. You don't want Charlotte. But he never actually hurts her because, well, the boyfriend's actually kind of nice to Charlotte overall. And so he's like, you know what? I'm not going to touch you. Like, it's only the people who really put Charlotte in danger that he hurts.
Yes, but he also does say at the beginning that he cannot do anything to the boyfriend because he doesn't want her to have a broken heart, and then he wouldn't love the vampire because, I think he says love is two hearts, connecting, and she has a broken heart. It can't happen, so that's probably the reason why he keeps the boyfriend alive.
But at the same time, all of the other people who are in her life who might be a threat to him, she eventually gets a lesbian love interest, for example. He had a chance to hurt her, and he did not, because, again, he actually is sort of protective of the people who are protective of Charlotte.
Yes. Okay.
The people he kills are, like, the really mean sons of a bitches. Like, there's one who tries to rape Charlotte.
Yes.
There's a friend who set her up to get raped.
I know, that was just weird, Hey, come, meet this guy. Okay, I'm living with this guy, and I'm leaving. I was like, and then the first thing the guy says was pretty much, not literally, but it's like, I'm going to rape you. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, no, that friend, really bad friend.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And I was like, I thought it was a script mistake. Like, I thought it was one of those things where it was sort of written really hastily. Mm-hmm. And then when the vampire comes up and go like, yeah, you're dead, bitch. I'm like, oh, no, you acknowledge that she's a horrible human being. That went into a very different direction than I expected.
Yeah, that's true. You expect her to be the typical college, hey, you need to relax and be with boys, and, I'm just doing this for your good, and I'm innocent and everything. But, no, she's just terrible. Or basically just maybe the movie is saying those kind of people are terrible, period,
Well, she is surrounded by terrible people. There's also the bully, like the little blonde chick there.
Yeah.
Oh my god, like she drugs the girl and leaves her on her own. And they're like, it's gonna be funny. She's gonna kill herself because she doesn't know what's happening to herself. It's like, oh my god, you're a horrible human being.
Yeah.
And she has a partner who's like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go check on her because what you did is sort of fucked up. And, he checks on her, and then they have the altercation, and he leaves, and he encounters the vampire, and the vampire's like, I might kill you. And then again, you did check on her, so I'm gonna kill the bitch instead.
Yeah.
Like, he has a sort of moral core.
Yeah.
And that made him interesting to me, where it's like, oh, that's not the movie I'm used to. Okay. So it got me interested on that level.
Yeah. You're right. You're right that both him and the boyfriend, or both the vampire and the boyfriend, are kind of, nice as a vampire that kills people can be. But it's really, I was also thinking about the consequences for her, if she ends up with one or the other, what are the consequences really? I didn't really care that much, is the thing. So
no, I agree. I like I said, I think your point is an excellent point. And the thing for me, what made it interesting is that the movie could end both ways. So I didn't know how the movie could end. So
there's a good point for predictability. It's true that you couldn't really figure it out. Didn't think of it that way, but yeah.
So the big question that I want to ask though is, as I was watching it and getting more involved in the story, I started seeing the movie a little bit differently, and it was no longer about a vampire trying to seduce a girl, and it was more about the girl sort of exploring her sexuality. And, for those of you not familiar with vampires, because you lived in a cave for the last 100 years or whatever, vampires are always represent lust. In every story, they always represent lust, from Blade to Twilight. Yeah. They're always sexual activity. That's what they are. So to a certain degree, knowing that coming in, which I like, that's not deep knowledge. Everybody knows that. You sort of start looking at it and going like, oh, okay, it's an exploration of this young prude growing into her sexuality because she's reached that age. Okay. And I sort of got into that story, and it made me wonder suddenly, like, is this really softcore pornography, as you said at the beginning of the episode, or is this an erotic film?
You're going to have to explain the difference between them.
An erotic film explores sexuality. A softcore porn exploits it.
Okay.
So the idea is whether or not the movie invites you into getting into her sexual journey and appreciate it, or is just showing you titties and just going like, get aroused by that.
Well, from the hundreds of websites I caught while just researching this movie, you could probably say it's softcore porn, but actually, from watching the movie, I could actually see it more that it is more of an erotic movie, as you say. Yes, I could see it more that way. I think there are certain scenes that are a little gratuitous, like when she wakes up just naked because she dreamt about the vampires. Like, it was a dream. She didn't have to wake up completely naked. That was just a little cheap, gratuitous shot there. But yeah, there are parts that are, yes, I can completely see that she's exploring, and I could see it being an erotic movie.
Yeah, I agree with you there. The gratuitous boob shots, especially at the beginning, are distracting. You get the sense of a director who's going like, okay, Alyssa Milano, we're going to explore your sexuality. And like turning around and going to her colleagues like, we're going to show the girl from Who's the Boss's titties for like all the time, you know what I mean?
Although she did work with the director again on Poison Ivy too, so I mean, Alyssa Milano probably liked her work and said, let's do something else again, you know, so it was probably just not exploitative, or the director is really, really good at, you know, hiding what she sees.
There must have been a good dynamic between her and the director, because that's about as good as I've ever seen Alyssa Milano act, to be honest.
Yeah.
She does the prude girl and sort of sexual awakening thing really well. Like, the only parts where she lost me is when she turns into like an Uber bitch at some point. Like, she wakes up and is like, I'm gonna put on a red dress and I'm gonna be a bitch, and it's like, because her normal character is like at a 1 on the bitchiness level, you expect her bitchy level to be around 6, and Milano plays it at like 13.
Yeah, you expect it to be like terrible at being a bitch, you know. It's like it's just trying but failing miserably at being mean to people. I would expect that, but no, she was like spectacular bitch, so you know that doesn't work really. It's you know, she just switched it way too fast.
Yeah, no, it's too, and she loses her sympathy at that point where it's like, whoa, I hate you, and I'm not gonna watch Charmed. But
there's so many reasons not to watch Charmed besides that, honestly.
But having said that, like, you get the sense that the director was interested in getting a real performance out of Alyssa Milano, because you have a lot of those sex scenes, such as the lesbian scene, for example, where, you know, a normal softcore movie would be all about showing the two girls making love, and this one, and here, Goursaud sort of focuses a lot of like portrait shots of Milano's face, just going like, am I doing this? Am I doing? All right, I'm going with it. No, wait, no, maybe I'm not. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So there's that idea. Like, there's a lot of scenes where they get Jennifer Tilly to seduce the boyfriend. Yeah. She never gets naked in the movie.
I know.
And you'd figure, you know, for such a small part, they would have gotten a lesser actress and gotten her naked if it were a softcore porn movie.
That is true.
You know?
Was her voice always like that?
Yeah, always.
God.
It's fascinating voice.
She's actually an anti-smoker or something. What is this?
Milano has those visions as well, you know, where she's like, oh, I'm seeing people having sex everywhere now for whatever reason. And there's like the orgy that she sees at the party scene, like there's like a lot of man-on-man grinding. Yeah. And again, in a softcore porn movie, aiming at a male audience, although because that's usually what softcore porn does.
That's sexist, man. It could aim at females as well. You don't know.
Really?
Although I'm not
really?
Sure.
You know, no. No. But like the man-on-man grinding, especially in 1995, it's sort of like that would have been like like you're watching like the naked people, Milano's breast, and you're like, oh, erection, and then like man-on-man grinding, like
Yeah.
I think there's enough evidence to say that no, this is an erotic film. At least it's meant that way.
Yeah.
And from that angle, it becomes interesting for me.
Maybe at the beginning it was just that okay, it's been 20 minutes, they haven't seen tits yet. Let's just keep them interested now, and then okay, let's do the movie.
Or maybe it was a way of going like, look, this is the movie you're gonna watch, people. Like
okay,
like you know what I mean? Like
yeah, because the first one's out of context, especially the first scenes where she the vampire has her walk out of her dorm and she ends up on the stairs and her boyfriend finds her and okay, I'll just bring her back to the room. That scene made no sense to me. I was like,
No.
it's like, oh, I found you on the steps. I didn't call the police. I didn't get you to the hospital. Nothing. I just brought you back to your room.
But I wouldn't call the police or anything. I'd bring her back to the room, but I'd stay with her and go like, so what happened?
Yeah,
like
at least try and wake her up and what's happening. If she's not responsive, take her to the hospital or something.
So if we're looking at it as an erotic film as opposed to something that Alyssa Milano embarrasses on the internet.
Yeah.
First of all, I can see why she was attracted to the project. It is actually an interesting story for her character. Like, she actually gets to act in it.
Indeed.
And then the idea, like, of what is it that the movie is trying to say about sexuality becomes sort of a key issue. Like, if you're going to make a movie exploring sexuality, what the hell are you saying about sexuality? Mm-hmm. And it is a complicated question with Embrace of the Vampire because, like we pointed out, it doesn't really matter if she ends up with the vampire, the lust part, or with her boyfriend, the monogamy part of her.
Guess, yeah.
Like, who cares? You know what I mean? But I think that's sort of the point. You'll notice that the vampire kills all of the people who take her sexual choice away from her. The rapist, her friend who says, like, you're going to have sex, and I'm going to set you up with somebody who's going to force you into having sex. And the bully who's like, oh, you're a prude, oh, you don't have sex, oh, well, you hung out with a slut, now you're a slut. Like, they're all trying to take away her sexual identity from her control, essentially. And how is the vampire defeated? Small spoiler alert, people, it's weird. She just goes like, no, I don't want to go with you. And he goes like, oh, you don't? Oh, okay, fuck it. Like, and it is the first time in the movie, though, that she goes like, I'm going to say what I want and what I don't want. And it's sort of like, I'm taking control of my sexuality, essentially.
Pretty much.
And I think the movie would have worked just as well if she was like, yeah, I want to bone a vampire. Like, it would have worked just as well.
Basically just saying that you're in control of your sexuality as you should be, and it shouldn't be decided by your boyfriend or some, vampire in your dream. It should be basically you deciding what you want to do with your body and who you give it to.
Yeah, exactly. And I think on that level, I was like, okay, well, I think the movie communicates that message effectively enough.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And in this sort of trippy, expressionist, sort of weird way, but it works.
Okay.
And for me, like, that the movie became sort of, okay, first of all, at the basis, the movie works, It's like, it's better than a lot of stuff that we've ended up reviewing for this show, to be honest.
Yes, indeed.
And then there's the stuff that I just like that are throwaway stuff. I like the way she reacts to the lesbian encounter.
Yeah.
Where, like, she starts to get seduced by it, and then she's like, no, I don't want this. And, like, she walks away. And it's not like a moment where she takes control of herself. It's a moment where she just gets so scared she just walks away. So and that's a normal reaction, I think. But at the same time, clearly she hasn't figured out who she is yet. And then when she comes back, like, she's actually really decent to the girl instead of being like, oh, wow, you're a lesbian, I don't want to talk to you. You tried to seduce me. Like, she's like, yeah, no, that happened. That's cool. The photos you took of me, like, I'd love to see them. Like, I still consider a friend and an artist,
Yeah.
And I thought that was really cool. Like, I thought that scene was like, wow, that rings much more mature than you see in movies usually.
Indeed,
Because usually you'd be like, I'm not gay. Okay, well, okay, exit stage character, like, whereas this, like, no, there's still a relationship going.
Yeah. I did like the vampire, played by the lead singer of Spandau Ballet. It was kind of funny. anecdote I read, also kind of funny, that somebody mentioned that the makeup was great because you could actually see the veins in his forehead.
Okay.
And he was shocked because he was not wearing makeup.
Ah.
And it was an undiagnosed brain tumor.
Oh my god.
Yep. he got...
He got better from this?
He got perfectly better. He's fine now. So it was like...
This is a movie that saved a life.
Indeed.
Oh, wow.
So I read that funny. That's a pretty funny anecdote. It's like, wow, great makeup. I'm not wearing makeup. Oh my god.
Any other cool anecdotes?
That movie also did bring the, I think, Alyssa Milano's crusade to, stop, I guess, porn on the internet. But it was basically, she did nudity for this movie and for this movie alone. And I guess she didn't like just the scenes cut out of the movie being put on the web.
Yeah, well, outside of the context that makes it erotic as opposed to pornography.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Exactly. Although, I don't think her crusade actually worked if you look at the internet today, but still, it was an interesting effort on her part.
Yeah, I mean, like, I have trouble judging her too harshly on this because, like, that must suck. Like, you make this interesting movie in your younger years, which is more daring. You're older now. You're sort of concerned about your children watching this, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But especially outside of context. Especially outside of context. Like, it's a sort of movie where you wouldn't necessarily be ashamed of showing your kids, but...
You wouldn't show your kids when they're 7.
Exactly. Like, you want to prepare them. It's like, look, your mom used to have sexual urges too and explore these ideas. She explored this with this director in a movie, and if you're going through that too, like, here's something I did artistically. I mean, like, if you're a super lit mom, you could do that.
Yeah.
But when your kid's like 16, 17, and like, I'm not saying that you should talk about about sex to your kids when they're 16, 17. I'm saying they should be 16 or 17 when they start seeing you naked. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, like when they're 7, it's like A, gross, seeing your mom naked, and B, seeing your mom naked being like in scenes that seem exploitive without the context. It's not cool.
Yeah.
So I have trouble judging her too harshly on her crusade because I think it comes from a very natural place, and I think she's more in the right than on the wrong. I think the people who are cutting up that stuff and putting it on the web there's certain copyright infringements there.
Yeah.
And you do stuff like that, there are consequences to the performers out there, and you could argue, well, like, she shouldn't have gotten naked. Well, yeah, but she got naked for a full movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
30 seconds.
She's not getting any residuals from, people just clicking and watching her, so that's also a negative there.
Yeah.
Also, but on her part too, I'm not saying, she's 95% right. The other 5% is you should still monitor what your kids do and watch on the internet. If you don't want them going on porn sites, there are ways to log those out.
It's an excellent point.
So that's but that's only like the small 5%. Like the other 95% is like, yeah, if it's you did that for a movie, you don't want to be taken out of context. There's a copyright issue there. I think she's right, but it's a losing battle. It's trying to remove that from the internet. It's trying to empty the ocean with a bucket. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, that's the greater point, is that it is a losing battle. Although you gave me an example once upon a time of an actress who figured out a way to do this, right?
Yeah, she got filmed by a stalker through the peephole in her hotel room, and that got leaked on the internet. And she bought the copyright to that movie. I think it was Erin Andrews. She was an ESPN anchor. So yeah, she bought the copyright to that movie, and every time she sees that on the web now, she's like, no, you have the copyright to this movie, you have to remove it. But it's again an ongoing battle, because those things reproduce faster than you can kill them, so you basically have to check very constantly and say, no, I have the copyright to this movie, remove it if you want it gone completely. But it is, it's a battle you have to fight if you really want those things removed. Basically saying, I have the copyright, you cannot show this.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the remake now.
Embrace of the Vampire, direct-to-video movie by Anchor Bay, and I was sort of expecting something completely different from the original. I sort of went in and going like, oh, this sounds like a movie where they just bought the name.
Yeah.
Because it's a recognizable name. Embrace of the Vampire is sort of a name that is thrown around people's consciousness in pop culture, mostly because Alyssa Milano is naked in it. Like,
yes.
That's mostly the reason why.
Also, vampires are really hot right now.
Yeah.
So you want to make a vampire movie, I'm guessing?
Yeah, exactly. But you could have called it anything. But they bought the name Embrace of a Vampire so that in video stores, people go like, Embrace of a Vampire, I heard about that. And then they just pick it up. You know?
Of course.
It's sort of the asylum technique, but with the actual name.
Yeah, but you paid money for the name, so it's good. It's not just, Transmorphers. You're like, who do you think you're kidding?
And my suspicion, I think, is correct, but at the same time, when I started the movie, I was surprised at how much it was faithful to the original in the beginning. Then in the second half of the movie, it goes into its own thing, and then you realize, that was an unrelated screenplay. But at the beginning, it was like, there's a girl named Charlotte, and she is a little prude, and she goes to college, and she's sort of surrounded by sex monkeys, essentially.
She's in college.
Yeah, pretty much. There's a bully who will not leave her alone. It's like all of those elements are there, pretty much the same. But then it goes into weird Buffy the Vampire Slayer territory without going into spoilers. It's really weird stuff.
They're killing vampires in that one?
Yeah. Like I don't want to get into spoilers because it's a big revelation, but it's sort of like there's stuff about bloodlines and chosen ones and vampire slayers and stupid stuff like that.
Wow.
Yeah, so I get the feeling that it was really an unrelated screenplay that was ripping off Buffy the Vampire Slayer more than anything, that got rewritten to fit the Embrace of the Vampire sort of elements in there.
So there's no exploration of sexuality and coming.
Yeah, no.
Maturity?
No, see, all the naked, there's no nudity in this movie. This is a straight horror movie.
Straight horror. Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah. And so it's essentially, the beginning is essentially Embrace of the Vampire, the 1995 movie with Alyssa Milano, but with Sharon Himendal replacing her, and all the sex scenes being replaced with fencing, of all things. It's really weird. There's a lot of fencing scenes in there.
Interesting.
Yeah, you'd think, but no.
At the Olympics, it's good because you're watching professionals, but in the movie...
Actually, technically at the Olympics, you're not watching professionals. That's why they're at the Olympics. They're all amateur athletes.
You're watching very, very, very good amateurs. Here you're watching professionals that aren't as good as the amateurs. Pretty
much, yeah.
So it's never that exciting, And so that's weird why you would put fencing.
Yeah, no, it's actually really boring to watch in the movie. And I've seen movies where they make fencing quite exciting because, it is a martial art, and martial arts can be really cool to watch on screen. But yeah, not in this movie, dude. It's really just boring and weird and and I have a problem with the lead. Watching the new Embrace of the Vampire made me appreciate Alyssa Milano's performance even more.
Okay. Where
I was she plays a little sheepish prude and she's fragile, but she plays it over the top, where it's she's always whispering like that because I'm mousy. I don't know.
Okay.
I was oh my god, that's such a cartoony performance.
Yeah, so she basically, I was gonna say, she is a cartoon character of the prude. Is basically not a real human being like Alyssa Milano actually portrayed.
That movie was a little bit painful to watch, to be honest. I don't recommend it, people.
Okay. So it did F with the original.
Oh yeah, no, for sure, because I really, really am convinced that they took an unrelated screenplay and went we need to get people to watch this, and the best way to do that is to take the title of a movie everybody's heard of but no one's actually seen and slap it on the box.
They went to IMDb and checked stuff from the original. I was okay, Charlotte, check, check, and they just read the synopsis and was okay, we can do a movie with this.
Actually, you know what? I didn't think of it that way, but yeah. So I guess that's it for us. If you have any questions, comments, you can write us at mail@idiomatic.com. You can also post a comment at idiomatic.com. We're also on iTunes. We're also on Twitter. We're also on Facebook. If you guys could like us on our Facebook page, it would help us get the support to continue generating content on a regular basis. Otherwise, I will have no choice but to film Nick naked and post it on the internet everywhere.
Nobody wants to see that. Nobody.